The birth of Gaia. In the very beginning, before time was time and space was space, there was nothing. There was no darkness, no light, no void, no ether. It wasn't empty, but it also wasn't full. This is best described as potential, an opportunity for existence to spring forth. This is where our story begins. Our first god is born from this potential. Her name is Gaia. She is the personification of the earth, and she is born fully grown from the potential that was the precosmos. But not even Gaia was truly alone. From the depths of her being, from the core of her divine self, sprang forth Uranus, the embodiment of the sky, who then lay across the newly formed earth. So even though they were born alone, they weren't alone. They were the first two gods, and their love resulted in the first race of gods, the Titans. And if you think that sounds like a pretty tame way to start a pantheon of gods, you should see how the Norse gods started. Anyway, let's get back to the Titans. The most well-known of the race are Atlas, who held up the sky, Cronus, who would later eat his children, and Prometheus, the trickster. But these are all names we will come across again later. For now, I just want to establish that the Titans were the first generation of gods. After them, there would be another generation, and after that another, and after that another, with each new generation taking the place of the old. At least that was the plan. When Cronus, the youngest of the Titans, was still a baby, his father Uranus took one look at him and decided that he didn't like what he saw. Not just didn't like, hated. You see, when Uranus looked down at his youngest son, he saw his own reflection staring back at him. He saw himself in Cronus's eyes, and it drove him mad with existential dread. Not wanting to look at himself, he banished Cronus away from him. And poor little Cronus was sent to live with his mother Gaia, who wasn't thrilled about having her youngest child taken away from her, but she loved her children more than anything else. So she raised Cronus with kindness and care. Meanwhile, Uranus floated around happily, reveling in his own greatness. He might have been too confident in himself, though, because Gaia didn't like what she saw in Uranus. In his arrogance, in his selfishness, in his willingness to cast away his youngest child. Gaia was a loving mother, and she couldn't stand seeing her son treated so poorly. So she came up with a plan to deal with her husband. She went up to Uranus and asked him to mate with her, so that they could make more Titans. But Uranus refused, didn't want to make more children. He didn't want to look at his own reflection in their eyes, and so Gaia tricked him. As he approached her, she bent over and opened up a cavern in the ground, trapping Uranus inside. She then gave birth to the Cyclopes and the Hecatontures, also known as the Hundred-Handed Ones. Now both of these races were incredibly powerful. Cyclopes were giants with a single eye in the middle of their foreheads, and the Hecatontires were equally giant with 50 arms growing out of each shoulder. In other words, they had a lot of hands. Their combined power was enormous, but unfortunately, their looks weren't exactly pleasant. Just imagine stumbling into your local Starbucks, and the barista had 3 eyes and 50 arms flailing everywhere. That's probably how Uranus felt when he saw them, so once they were born, he told Gaia to get rid of them, to banish them away so that he would never have to see them again. Poor kids. They hadn't even finished their first box of crayons, and their dad already wanted them gone. Gaia, of course, didn't want to do this, but she loved her husband more than anything else. So she took the children away from Uranus and hid them deep within the earth. And here's where the story gets complicated. On one hand, Gaia understood why Uranus did what he did. If he didn't, she wouldn't have helped him. On the other hand, Uranus's actions caused pain to many, including the children that Gaia loved so dearly. So what was the right thing to do? Well, depending on how you view things, there are 2 ways to look at it. One could argue that Gaia sided with Uranus because she allowed the Cyclopes and Hecatontires to be banished. But one could also argue that Gaia sided with her children because she hid them away and protected them from their father. Either way, though, Gaia knew that something had to be done about Uranus. She hated how he acted, how he looked, how he spoke, everything about him. She needed to get rid of him. She thought she had a plan. She went to the Cyclopes and the Hecatontires and asked them to help her with a task. She told them that she needed them to forge a special tool for her, a tool that would allow her to punish her husband. Now, the Cyclopes and Hecatontires were happy to help, but they were terrible at making things. Their tools were always breaking, and that's putting it lightly. But Gaia had faith in her children. She believed that if they worked hard, they could make something great, or at least not break it completely. Now, this tool that Gaia asked for was extremely powerful. It would allow her to castrate Uranus and bring an end to his reign. And I know that sounds like quite a plot twist, but remember, this is Greek mythology. Gods don't really stick to one moral code. Sometimes they can be heroic, sometimes they can be villains, and sometimes they can be both at the same time. Anyway, the Cyclopes and Hecatanchers went to work forging this tool. Now, I'm not exactly sure what it was made out of. Maybe some ambrosia, some nectar, maybe some Titan metal. All I know is that it got the job done. Gaia then took the tool and snuck up on her husband. He was floating along, thinking about how great he was, when suddenly Gaia jumped out and attacked him with all of her might. Uranus screamed in pain as his manhood was cut off and fell into the sea. Gaia then picked up his severed body parts and flung them away. And this is where we start to see the world change. The potential that was the precosmos was used up when Gaia gave birth to the first gods. Then the Titans came along and helped shape the world until they were eventually replaced by the Olympians. And this replacement of generations continued until it reached the gods that we know today. Every step of the way, there were changes to the world, big and small. Gaia and Uranus represent the first steps. They brought the world into existence, but it was Zeus who shaped it. So while Gaia is the personification of the earth, it was Zeus who created the weather and the seasons. While Gaia is a life-giving force, it was Demeter who created farming and the harvest festivals. While Gaia might have been the first mother, it was Hera who welcomed mortals into her family. In other words, Gaia brought the world into existence, but it was Zeus who molded it. She set the foundation, but it was he who built upon it. And it's the same when it comes to humans. We have the potential to do great things, but it's up to us to put that potential to use. We have the freedom to decide what we become. However, that doesn't mean that Gaia isn't important. In fact, I would say that without her, we would have nothing. I mean, technically, we wouldn't even exist. But beyond that, she is the mother of the gods, and without her, Olympus wouldn't have happened either. Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades, the three brothers who ruled the cosmos, were raised by Gaia and became the foundation of the new pantheon. And she continued to play an important role in the lives of the gods. Even when she disagreed with them, she still cared for her children. So while Gaia is certainly a god of immense power, I wouldn't call her a goddess of great influence. Sure, she can shake the world with her earthquakes and cause plants to grow with her touch, but those abilities are mostly kept to herself. When it comes to playing an active role in the affairs of the gods, Gaia prefers to stay out of it. I mean, we only see her appear in the stories of the Gigantomachy and the Titanomachy, two massive battles between the gods, and that's it. Everything else is speculation. So that begs the question, why is Gaia so important? Why should we care about her? Well, I'll tell you why. Gaia represents nature. She is the mountains and the seas and the rivers and the trees. She is the foundation of life itself. Without her, we would have nothing. But that's not why she's so important. You see, Gaia is more than just the earth, more than just nature. She is potential. She is the opportunity for life to begin. And that is why she is so important, because without her, we would have nothing to begin with. Thanks for watching.